So, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to whichever part of the world you're watching in. You have tuned into BRiK Academy and you're watching Candid Conversations with Industry Experts. And I'm your moderator, Mihir Pujara. Now, today, the guest we have is ahead of the curve long before the analytics became the buzzword and AI was part of sci fi in our textbooks. He is a pioneer, he's a healthcare transformer, and someone I know who refuses to age because he is always powered by passion and purpose. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Amit Sadana. He is founder of Pharmac back then, and he has always been at the intersection of human intelligence and technology. So, welcome, Amit, to BRiK Academy. And I would like to say that when you founded Pharmac in 2004, I was completing my board examination. So while I was grappling with algebra, you were redefining the future of healthcare analytics. And I would like to also say that to audience that apart from his entrepreneurial journey, he has led global teams at many, many organizations. And if I just name few of them, it's IQVIA, IMS, Mu Sigma, Apiro, and many more. And his journey is still continuing. His journey about healthcare transformation is ongoing. And currently, he is working to redefine and make the healthcare system better across different continents. So, Amit, it's an honor to have you on our podcast and welcome to BRiK Academy.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You're very kind of you, man.
No, thank you. No, it's absolutely an honor that you have taken out time and I'm speaking today with you. So let's start with a question. I mean, all the viewers across the world definitely would like to know that when you started Pharmac in 2004, right? So analytics and especially pharma or healthcare analytics wasn't the mainstream. So what motivated you? What inspired you to jump into this area and that too into entrepreneurship?
So actually, for first thing, I need to correct you. I co-founded Pharma,
Okay,
right?
okay.
So there is Siraj and I. We've known each other for many years. We worked together when I was at Bristol Myers Squibb. He actually took a job which I was leaving, and he continued his journey at BMS. I continued my journey. We went through, but we used to always meet up. And always wonder we should move back to India and do something for our country, and do. Uh, it used to excite us. I mean, we were young, and in India at that time was also kind of going through a change. We had just opened up. The winds were blowing in the right direction. So finally, then this conversation used to go on. And after I left the US, I moved to Europe. I was in London, then I moved to Basel with Roche. And I used to meet Siraj all the time. And when Siraj finally moved from US, he was I think at Goldman or one of the big financial firms, and then he moved back to India. And then that's when we really started thinking about whatever work which I was doing in Europe at that time. I was with Roche and I was managing global forecasting, CI, market research, analysis, all of that for global therapy areas like transplant, HIV, and so on. And the thought was like, this work, whatever that was, could that be done easily, remotely, if you had the right people and if you could train the right people. So that is what started this journey. But I have to say that we were not the pioneers. I mean, we were the early ones, but if you think about the pioneers, you'll have like someone like Jesse Chadda, who started Market RX, sold it to Cognizant much before. But we were in the early days, right?
Nice.
And then so the whole idea was, could we do CI? Could we support business teams? And we were largely focused on the commercial side because that's the area where we came from, right? And then when we founded, we opened our offices in January 2004. We had a bit of business in hand, but by the time I left Roche, I had a few months of garden leave. We tried to get some business. And then when we opened our office, and we were very worried. But the idea was, if we could get $200,000-$300,000 at that time, we would live well in India, and we were young, and so on. And that's sort of what started it off. And and to be very honest, we never really had very grand ambitions. So we were just doing good work, good quality work. We used to work very hard, uh, and uh, and some good people joined us in that journey. People who stayed with us for many years, who contributed immensely, to
Yeah.
our success. We had Sasha Hemos who joined us in Europe. We had Raj Dave join us in the US. Later on, Behzad Zamordi came in as well, and he played a very big role in our Sanjeev Luther. But the idea was, like, could we create dedicated teams for analytics, for life sciences, for pharma companies? And we actually did that. We created the first COE or a GCC equivalent for Novartis when they gave us 25 at that time, 25, 30 headcounts. And we were dedicated to Novartis's commercial teams. Novartis learned a lot, I would say, and then they set up their own Hyderabad center, which has grown like immensely and has done really, really well for Novartis, over these years. So yeah,
Yeah.
and we used to target people who had a B Farm MBA, and because that we felt would be had a good amount of clinical and medical content with a business mindset, and it worked. Our first few people, and a lot of offshoots have come up of Pharmac, as you know, Pharmace has
Yes.
done
Yeah.
incredibly well, Harjut and his team. Some of, so yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
but there was no like sort of that we are going to create something stupendously. It was a journey, you learn, you did
True.
something, but the focus was on quality. We do a good job and we do it
Yeah.
right, put a lot of effort in, and I think that's the most important part.
And that is what I want to ask in follow-up questions since you touched about people. So in my career journey, a lot of my reporting managers, they started their career journey with Pharmac and
Yeah.
then they went to different organization and set up the analytics team, right? So at this juncture, how do you feel that the legacy of Pharmac is lived on in many ways?
I mean, it's been incredible,
Yeah,
and I think there've been, there's a lot of others. I'm sure when you talk to people who worked at Pharma, I mean, there were a lot that you'll hear a lot of anecdotes. And so not only the focus on work, but I think, we used to party a lot. Our motto was work hard, party hard, right? And that we, I mean, we had teams sitting in our offices all night working like crazy. I mean, Harjot and his team, Nitin, who is now a senior executive at Nitin Patnagar at CS and Bearing, Rusbe, who's now at Novartis. I mean, a lot of these guys would just stay in and work their butts off, and then we would party again very hard as well. So it was it was very early. It was a different world, and India was also very different at that time, right? And analytics was very different at that time. Life sciences industry, from an analytics point of view, was still very early days. Today, the world has changed drastically. 20 odd years later, analytics in life sciences moved to the next level.
true.
India has changed a lot as well during that time.
Yeah.
So,
But if I may ask you, that might excite a lot of our viewers that if you have to found or co-found Pharmac again in 2025, right? What are some of the things that you would do differently?
I was talking to someone about that recently, and when we founded Pharma in 2004, a little bit of what we caught on to the was the wind blowing in the right direction, which was the wind of outsourcing, offshoring, understanding that this model is possible, right? And
Yeah.
today, I would say that same wind, maybe that wind was probably a year or so earlier, is the wind of AI,
Yeah.
right? And if you co-found a company today, it has to be on the back of ability to develop AI use cases as fast as possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
And use cases, whether it's agentic AI, use cases, whether it's sort of LLMs, those are that's but to build on use cases.
True.
A lot of horizontal work is already out there, but I
Yeah.
see very limited vertical use cases being done. Although I have to say, in insurance, I see a lot more. I mean, But in the pharma analytics, it's still it's still a little while to go, perhaps, but maybe more on the development side, on the R&D side. I think there's a lot more
Understood.
happening.
No, truly. And since you have touched upon the topic of AI, right, which is a buzz, and then there's an ongoing debate about AI, whether it's a threat or enabler. So I mean, you're the right guy to ask your opinion about how you see AI at this stage, and how do you see it's gonna transform in years to come.
I mean, it is ubiquitous, right? It's all around us, and it will only continue. I don't think people do searches on Google anymore. People search on ChatGPT,
True.
right?
Agreed. Yeah.
And so I think that it is imminent. It will happen. We just have to work around it. I think people who adopt it faster will do a lot better than people who resist it, right?
Understood.
And so, and I think I've heard this from many people. What AI will replace is people with AI will replace people without
Understood. Yeah.
AI, right?
No, that's very well put. Completely echo your views on the technology part. But as I
Yeah.
used the sentence in my introduction about intersection of human intelligence and technology, so let's talk about the human intelligence part, right? So apart from your entrepreneurial journey, you got a chance to lead global teams and worked with various cultures, various markets. So would be curious to know, right? So what challenges, what learnings you have had working with different people across the boundaries, and some of the really interesting lessons that you have learned.
Right. I think when we started pharma, when we became entrepreneurs, prior to that, we were working with big pharma, right? And and the lessons in big pharma, were like, okay, you have a very focused work which you need to do, um, but there are other people doing other parts. Your part is just that, right? When you became an entrepreneur, everything was your part, right?
Yeah,
And
true.
there wasn't any other part somebody else will do, right? So I think that was that was a big change, right? You had to take care of every element, and Siraj and I, we broke down our tasks between us, and then later when Sasha and Raj came in, we broke them down even further. But that was a big change. When we wrapped up, when pharma grew, we got funded by Bearings India, and then we had a formal board, and then the board would there were constraints which the board had would put, and you had to work within those constraints, right? And it was okay. I mean, so when we sold Pharmac, and I moved to IMS at that time, which later became IQVIA.
Yeah.
The first 2 years were really trying to help IMS drive this whole global outsourcing in a bigger way, which we did, and then it was moving to Dubai to run IQVIA's business. At that time, it was only two countries. I mean, Gulf and Saudi, not two countries, like the Gulf region, right? And and it was now being put in a scenario where there were more constraints. So it was not just, but you could still operate within those constraints as an entrepreneur.
Understood.
And that is what when I moved to Dubai, our business was very small. We had like largely was data business, and we had very very little services at that time. And that's when we created services in a bigger way. We went after consulting, analytics, market research, real world, and we created all of this, and that helped grow that business. And then uh, when we started acquiring companies which were at the adjacencies of, let's say, life sciences, and this would be providers, payers, public health. So we did a few acquisitions. We created a new lines of businesses that's specifically in public health. And that was how we grew. But it was, again, we were working within a constrained environment, right? We couldn't do anything we wanted.
Sure, true.
But very important was like the support you got from the leadership. I mean, I had an amazing boss in IQVIA, Alistair, and he gave a lot of support.
Extremely well put, right? And you touched upon the support that you have got from your boss. So I would like to touch upon the idea of mentorship, right? So now in today's age, you have a lot of online platforms to upskill and learn, but that human to human connect and human to human mentorship, right? That is little bit fading away. So I would like to know your opinion about a professional who has started the career or at a mid senior level or maybe established leader, how to approach mentorship throughout the career journey, and why is it so important to have good mentors around you to grow in your professional and personal life?
Yeah. I mean, my experience on this whole mentorship has been really that it truly doesn't work. It has to be from within. And, you need to have that fire from within. And that fire from within is really a curiosity, which you have to be very curious about anything you're doing and constantly asking the questions why. Why am I doing it? What are the bigger reasons for it? So I think and towards that, you need to create good content for yourself.
Understood.
And by reading, by understanding, by debating, discussing. Mentor as a role could be if you want to test some ideas, that you have done some pre-work and you have thought something through, and then you want to test it out, and a mentor can help you. Mentor can help, if there is this fire in the belly, a mentor can help open doors potentially sometimes, right? But a lot of it has to come from you.
Very right. Very well
Yeah.
put. Right. And
So,
I, I'm also part of an entrepreneurial setup, right? So I can relate to what you are saying.
right, exactly. So if you're a good manager, you will always look for people who are better than you, because then you as a team will do better, right?
Indeed.
So egos need to be left behind. Respect, mutual respect is very, very important. If you're able to build a rapport, because your boss is the single most important person who will determine your career in your early days. On, I don't know if it is so prevalent today because I haven't been doing a lot of hiring at the lower levels. But earlier on, people used to move very quickly. They used to 1 year and move to another job, another 20% gain, another year, and that, most of us would never hire people like that, right? Um, but I think you could still do that. You could still get good experiences, different set of experiences within the same organization. And I would have a lot more respect for someone who was moving within an organization, even though the organization is small, right? I did X for 2 years and I did Y for 2 years, and I contributed a lot to the growth of an organization because and I think that's a probably better way of growing in my mind than moving
Indeed.
from one job to the other job.
Indeed. No, very well put. Completely echo what you have said. Now I would like to switch gear a bit. And this question is from, I mean, a lot of people that I spoke to. I think people know you by your journey, especially the Pharmac. But I'm very curious to know the mission that you are up to right now. Right. So as per your LinkedIn profile, you're associated with organizations such as Itkan and DocFlick and AMRA Advisory, right? And it's about healthcare transformation. But can you show us some light? I mean, in what problems you are trying to solve, and what's the mission you are up to?
Yeah, so I think with three things which I learned, and maybe these lessons were sort of very deeper in my thinking. One is, healthcare is a very local subject.
Mm,
It
indeed.
changes very fast as you move. Like in India, states, municipalities, towns. When you move to UAE itself, you have three different healthcare systems. You go to Saudi, even though there's a national, but there are clusters. So healthcare is a very local subject. So you need to be able to provide, better healthcare, access, universal healthcare, locally. And that's sort of the first thing. Second thing is, one thing which happened working in IQVIA in the region was we moved from pure life sciences to broader healthcare, which means we touched on not only touched, we started getting very close to the insurance, to the provider, to the government, and when we private equity, venture cap, so all of these different stakeholders, and you realize that as today's world, life sciences can't exist on their own. They need to be in that healthcare ecosystem with the payer, the provider, the government.
Symbiotic relationship.
It's very deep now. It's not just symbiotic anymore, right?
Okay.
A life sciences company will not be able to survive. They don't understand the insurance reimbursement, right? They won't be able to survive. They don't have good relationships with providers and understand how the providers' business is going, right? So that has become very deep. Healthcare has become very local. And there is no one company which can really solve the broader healthcare problems.
Indeed. So I was reading a very interesting article yesterday on LinkedIn, which talks about that now we have some really breakthrough therapies in the market in form of diabetes. But alone, those drugs are not going to solve the diabetes problem if there are other components also working alongside the drug, right? Which is about adherence to the therapies and then lifestyle changes and all that, right? And that ecosystem somehow is not there. So but by just taking a drug, right, it would be an immediate solution for next 2 3 months, maybe 6 months. You might gain a weight loss, but it won't holistically improve your health if the other components are not managed.
Exactly.
True. Okay, very nice. So we have a lot of students as well who usually view our videos. So for them, I would like to know if they are aspiring to be an analytics professional in today's world, right? What kind of skill set they need to focus upon and how they can prep themselves to be today's analytic professional?
I think the most important thing is to understand in analytics, the basis of analytics is data, right? Is to understand the data available today for analytics in a lot more detail. So, and you have a variety of data, right? You have claims data, EMR data, IQVIA data on sales, you have data on patients. I mean, a variety of lab data, radiology data. Try to understand what is available and get into, being able to work with it in some way, shape, or form, right? So that probably skill set for anyone who wants to get into analytics becomes the base. The second thing is, as I said, healthcare is very local. So try to understand the healthcare market in the US, in Europe, in Asia Pac, in India. The more you understand and maybe even work within these markets, right, the better you will then learn and the better you'll be able to go, right? So it's the understanding of data, it's the understanding of these different markets, and then trying to get that experience, maybe within an organization where you are, or if you're looking to enter an organization, that you will stay with them and get that experience of worked in the US, worked in Europe, worked in different, just to understand how the world of healthcare is, right?
Indeed.
So
now, being mindful of time, I would like to start with the next section that we have, which is a rapid fire round. So Amit, I'll be asking you some quick questions, and there'll be quick answers. So those are light-hearted questions to unleash some more insights about you as a human being and as a professional. So should we start?
sure.
Yeah. So first, if Pharmac had a tagline today, what would it be?
I think we did that at one point, but it really would be quality and cost effectiveness. Quality and cost effectiveness. I mean, again, those would be the two key words in that tagline. I'll need to think about what a tagline.
No, sorry for putting you on spot with this, but yeah, let's move to the next one. One thing you miss about those early career days, I think you emphasized on that you were partying a lot and there were a lot of adrenaline rush, right? But what are some of the other things that you miss from those days?
I think you had a lot more energy, so you could be partying out late, but you will be at a meeting at 8 a.m. in the morning with a suit on, and that's what when we were running Pharmac, you were one day in London, another day you were in Paris and the US. I mean, we were selling and so I missed that part, which was, but do I want to do it again? Perhaps not. But at that time, it was a lot of fun.
Indeed. How do you stay so passionate and energized, right? So and so youthful as well as I'm speaking with you.
I think, work becomes your hobby, right? When work becomes your hobby and and it comes from within, trying out reading, trying out new things, talking to people, I think passion and energy come with that. Then it doesn't matter if you have to show up, take a flight late, get up in the morning early. You're just enjoying what you're doing, and that is what the message is for everyone: to make work your hobby. Right? If
True.
that happens, then energy and passion will remain. Yeah.
You are into books, podcast, articles.
I'm
What
more
what?
into reading than into podcasts. I actually, on the podcast side, I did listen. I like history podcasts. I was listening to The Empire. I don't know if you heard that
Mm-hmm,
podcast.
mm-hmm.
William Dalrymple, he does that. So, but very limited on the podcast side. More reading.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any book on top of your mind you recommend
I've got.
to?
I mean, at any given time, I have like a few of them. you know, which I'm reading. So right now, I have. A few lessons from Sherlock Holmes going on, the great mental models, the lessons of history, so various Tuesdays with Maury, so various books
Wow.
at one given
Wow.
time. Let's see, just to keep you engaged and keep you interested.
Now, I mean, this is a bit naive, but what's more fun, right? Building a startup from scratch or maybe running a big engine. What you have enjoyed the most?
Building a startup is by far the most fun. Building something small is amazing. Working
Sure.
with something small is a lot more fun than working with big. Yeah.
So if not healthcare, where would you be?
I think I would have probably ended up. I mean, I did my undergrad in maths, and then I did my master's in stats. And the reason was, the not so good mathematicians became statisticians, right? Uh, and one of my first, when I was looking for a job, I was interviewing at Parexel. I actually got a job at Parexel in Boston, but then I ended up with Sloan Kettering. I think environment, maybe, anything with stats I would have ended up in,
Sure. I'm gonna
finance.
tag a lot of statistician friends that I have when
Yeah,
I'm putting this podcast up.
yeah.
uh, what's one skill that you think everybody should learn in today's world? Is it AI or something else?
I think the one skill which I think everyone should learn is to ask three questions: what, so what, and now what? To anything they
Okay, very nice. Okay.
do.
Uh, what startup idea you wish you had thought of looking at the the current dynamics?
Uh, that's a tough one, but I think you know if we have moved out of the life sciences space into broader healthcare, then I
Hmm,
think what some of the insurance space and some of the startups which have done really well, like Innovisor, and some of the others in that space. Even what Docker has done, I mean, that's a
yeah.
really great concept, and Harshit and his team has done a fantastic job there as well. So there are a few really good ideas which came out, which have done well and continue to do well. I think probably in that space, where there's a intersection of data and some solution which you are trying to derive and some service you're trying to provide.
Wait, sure. Now, this question I ask usually in my every podcast that what one advice you give to your younger self?
Um, I think probably one big advice I would give to my younger self is to leave um, not leave sort of being healthy for another day because you're so focused on work.
True, very true. I think very apt, right? In today's environment where
Correct.
the stress.
I mean, we always find good reasons. They're all very good reasons, that I can't work out today and I can't eat healthy today. And like a lot of us who travel a lot, and I'm very much, I did the same for a big part of my life. But I think if I had to go back, I would have said that probably, that putting it into your DNA that you need to work out and eat healthy, no matter what work you're doing, is probably one advice I would give myself.
Yeah, yeah. I have started gym and diligently following every day. So yeah, that's a great piece of advice. What technology you're most excited about in today's world?
Uh, what technology I'm most excited about? I think the use cases of AI is what I'm most excited about.
Okay. And if I may ask, which are one or two most used apps on your phone?
I'm like a bit of a news hound. So Twitter,
Okay. Yeah.
that's like one way to keep abreast of everything going on
Yeah.
in the world. And WhatsApp, obviously, like everybody else, I'm sure. And then, yeah, I mean, Daily Hunt, which I use
Yeah.
again
True.
from a news from the Indian subcontinent, from India mostly. So yeah, and then it's the Kindle.
Yeah. No, we talked about, yeah, indeed. We talked about a lot of great things. Like, let me focus upon the mistakes part. Any mistake you think you glad you made?
Be glad you did. Yeah, I mean, early on, when we created Pharma, somebody came to us. We were looking for business. Somebody came to us and said, I'll give you a lot of business. At that time, it was like talking like some big numbers, but you give a cut to someone, sitting in somewhere else. And we were like, it was a lot of money, and we could have said, oh, that would be like, no, we don't want to do something like that because it will spoil our reputation. And I'm really glad that we didn't do that. And I think those are those telling times where, for all entrepreneurs, for everybody actually, where they are put in a scenario where you have to make a decision, and the tougher decision is the tougher for now is the decision you decide to make. That actually will help you more in the longer term than if you take that easy decision now, which will give you something right away, will cause you a lot more pain in the future.
No, thanks for emphasizing that. I mean, shortcut versus long route, and then the importance of integrity, right? Great. Yeah, I would like to, end on this is a beautiful note to end the podcast. So yeah, showing up, and relates to me and resonates with a lot of professionals. So it was really great speaking with you, Amit. I'm sure the insights that you have shared gonna help not only me but to a lot of professionals out there. So thank you so much again for taking out time. And all our viewers, please take good care of yourself, as Amit has highlighted, and be curious and keep learning. You're watching BRiK Academy, and a great candid conversation we have had with Amit Sadana. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining at BRiK Academy.
Take care.
Take care, Amit. Bye.
Bye.